Hello everybody, today's the day I'm going to be explaining how I go about building a template in 2024. It's quite different to the way I used to do it. It requires less computer resources, it requires fewer tracks, and it gives you greater flexibility and freedom. Why would you need a template at all in this day and age? Because if you just start with, boom, the famous blank sheet of paper, there's stuff you're going to have to do over and over and over again, which is a complete waste of time. I'm all about minimizing the amount of time you spend faffing around with technology and maximizing the amount of time you actually spend doing something creative and writing music. So this template I'm going to show you how to build will take you probably half an hour. I'm building it in Cubase, but this approach applies to pretty much any DAW. Cubase, Logic, Digital Performer, Pro Tools, Live, FL Studio probably, or the brand new Hokey Cokey 2000, which is the only DAW which writes music for you while you're on holiday. So I strongly recommend you check it out. Now, I'll show you the basic approach. There's a choice you have to make right at the start. Are you going to have one track with one instrument on, like violin, and then use key switches or articulation IDs or expression maps or any of these other technologies to change between articulations? Or are you going to have a separate articulation on each track? I always go for separate articulation on each track because it gives you much more control over volume, over track delay, over all kinds of things. And the way I'm going to show you how to build this, it honestly doesn't take you any time at all to swap from one to another and all the rest of it. So, right, let's get on. Let's start. I'm just going to use BBC Symphony Orchestra because I know lots of you have got it. When I build a template, I tend to do it in normal orchestral score order, which puts the piccolo at the top. And what I do is I will create the track. I use a Stream Deck, which has got all the functions I use all the time, like edit instrument, duplicate track. I use it all the time. I must use it 100, 200 times a day. So, okay, so here we have the track. Open the edit instrument. It's already pre-selected legato, so that's job done. Right, now we want to duplicate the track. I push my Stream Deck button. Now we're going to have longs on that one. There we go. Now go edit instrument, go in, change it to long. Come out, duplicate the track again. Go in, shorts, and that's it. Then we're going to edit the instrument, go to shorts. Right. There you go. So now we've got legatos, longs and shorts. That's all I need for each instrument. If I need more than that, then all I have to do is duplicate the track and change the articulation. Now, BBC Symphony Orchestra, you tend, when you load an instrument, you load all the articulations. You can set it up so that you just have one but it's a real, not easy. So, but there are lots of other libraries where it's dead easy. So if memory is a real issue, then you can load up one individual articulation rather than all of them. But this way is super quick and super easy. Right. Now, if, for example, I'm now halfway through a piece and say, do you know, I really want, I need a little trill here, duplicate the track and go, okay, this is going to be a halftone trill, edit the track, select halftone trill, wherever that is, where's the halftone trill gone? When you find it, minor trill, there you go, that'll do. Job done. So that is how I start. And I go through the whole orchestra, section by section, keeping score order. And that's why it only takes half an hour. Now, if you want to add groups, in other words, so that all the woodwinds are on one fader, all the brass are on another fader, it makes it much easier to balance your whole orchestra up. What I would do is go and create 5 groups, which is what we're going to start with. There you go. And the top one is going to be, so we're going to woodwind, brass, misc, perk, and strings. Okay. Then each of these groups, because they're distinct, you're going to have a separate reverb for each one. If you just have one overall reverb, and you're using a group to fade the woodwind up and down, the reverb's going to stay there and the instrument's going to go like that. So you need the reverb all sort of blended in with the instrument. So therefore, we now need to create 5 reverbs. Go to Effect, there's 5 of those. There we go. Blonk. And you do the same thing. Woodwind reverb, brass reverb, misc reverb, perk reverb, and string reverb. You can get a lot more granular than that. And if you then also want to work with stems, you can do the same thing. So you can have 5 stems. So it splits out each of these. So you've got woodwind stem, brass stem, misc stem, perk stem, strem even, and string stem. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take these top 5. Here's our mixer. So we've selected all, say these are all the woodwinds. Now, in Cubase, and I suspect other DAWs as well, if you hold down Shift and Control, what will happen is, if I hold Shift and Control and then I select, having got all these 5 tracks selected, I then go into the routing and I change it from a stereo out to woodwind. It changes all of them. Likewise, sends woodwind reverb, turn it on, turn them down. I'm applying this to all of them at the same time. This saves hours and hours. Okay, so now, obviously, when you go through, you need to put the woodwind reverb. Hang on, where is it? There we go. Yes, you've got to route the reverbs in the right way as well. So that's got to go. The woodwind reverb has got to go to woodwind. The brass reverb's got to go to brass. The misc to misc, etc. And this way, you're keeping it all nice and clean and tidy, and it's all nice and straightforward. And then, if you actually want to use the stems, which is optional, then the input is going to be from the group. So the input to the woodwind stem comes from the input of the woodwind group. Brass group goes in there. Misc group goes in there. I'm doing this very quickly, so you may need to run this back slowly to understand what's going on. Okay, so now we've set up all the routing. Let's now add a few more tracks, I think. Yeah, okay, so we've got some piccolos going on up there. Okay, just for the sake of argument, I'm going to have a French horn so that we've got a different group. Now, it's gone to a different group, so we're going to have to route it separately. So it needs a different reverb, it needs the brass reverb. And routing-wise, we're going to have to send our friend here to the brass group. Okay. Now, here's the second reason why the duplicate thing works so well. So let's get this up and load up a French horn. Where's brass? There's brass. Let's have horns of 4. There we go. Right, so that's legato horn. French horn, legato. Now duplicate. Now, what's just happened? When I duplicated that track, I haven't just duplicated the track, I've duplicated the reverb sends, the routing, the whole thing. So I don't have to think about that if I'm duplicating a track which is already part of the same group. Time saver, time saver. Okay, right, this one's going to be just straight legato. I may as well dupe that out and do the short as well. Okay, so there we go, short, right. So now we'll go and edit our friend here and just swap him onto longs, and our friend here, and swap him onto shorts. There we go. Where is it? Staccato. Right, so now we've got okay, now you can hear there already, there's a lot of variation in terms of the volume. And that's, we haven't touched anything, we haven't touched any volume, anything, but there is clearly quite a lot of discrepancy. So we're going to have to tidy this up. This is one of the biggest challenges. There is no perfect answer to this. What my approach to this is, I try and eliminate as many of the variables as humanly possible because there are so many different ways you can influence the volume of the instrument. Might be velocity, it might be the mod wheel, it might be CC7, which is volume, CC11, which is expression. It goes on and on and on. So if you neutralize those, or some of those, and leave yourself just one way in which you can tweak things, then at least you start with a level playing field. So what we're going to do, if we go to, let's start with the piccolo up here. I'm going to, in this first bar, I'm just drawing an empty piece of MIDI. So we open that up. Right, the first thing we're going to do, we're going to set the mod wheel for like, I don't know, 2/3 of the way up. So I'm going to set it for 90. I'm then going to set CC7, which is volume, for the same. So I'm going to set that for 90 as well. I'm then going to take CC11 expression, which I don't really use, and I'm going to put it for 100. So now, as soon as we play that piece of MIDI, it's going to set all those controllers for that track. So all those are going to be essentially the same. Now, if we duplicate that track to all the others, instantly, as soon as I play it, they're all going to have their mod wheel, their CC7, their CC11, all. How, therefore, do we actually adjust the volume? Well, what I tend to do, you know, this is trial and error, this is where I've ended up, is I use pre-gain. Now, pre-gain is a sort of a setting which goes before the fader and adjusts the volume of the instrument. Now, your DAW might not have something called exactly the same, but it's probably got either a gain knob or a gain plugin, and they will both do the same thing. So what I'm trying to do is I'm using the pre-gain to get the volume of all the instruments more or less level, and then I can use the groups to blend them together. So for example, here we go. If I turn on the meter, there, the meter bridge, there we go. Let's start with our legato. Okay, so that's a little bit on the low side. It's sort of going up to 24. I'd like it up near 18. So I go to the pre-gain, okay, and I'm going to add 3 dB. Maybe 5 dB, a little bit more. There you go, that's better. Right, now let's try the long. Okay, that needs a little bit of help, but not as much. So I think probably only 3 dB. Well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe it does need a little bit more help. Okay, you can hear it sort of swells, doesn't it? Right, what about the half? Again, we can add a bit more in there. Yeah, most of these are going to go up about 5 dB, I think. Well, actually, that's even under a bit. 7. Yeah, that's better. What about the shorts? Wow, that's way up. I'm going to leave that at 0. So there is an example of how all these instruments from the same manufacturer, same library, actually sound slightly different in terms of dynamic. It's because they're, you know, they are very dynamic instruments. So trying to control this is really hard. So, but just starting by getting them in the right ballpark should make this easier. So if I now play a simple line, which is now we're going to have some shorts, so go ba ba ba. And now a half-tone trill on the end. It sounds like the same instruments playing. That's why we have separate tracks. That's why you would find that much harder to do if you just had one track and you were using articulation IDs. Now, okay, so now we've got this silly little piece of music in there. I'm not going to balance up the French horns, but I'll just for the sake of argument, I'll just play some French horn in. Okay, now I need an extra track. So I'm going to duplicate it, edit it. Have I got a swell or something like that? Long muted, long staccatissimo, muted swell. What have I got? Flutter, long quiver, staccatissimo, multi-tongue. Okay, just for the sake of argument, I'm going to go flutter tongue. So, okay, so on the end, I'm going to have a flutter tongue articulation. Right, okay, so now we've got woodwind and brass playing. This is why the having groups is really useful, because the piccolo is currently too quiet. This is almost unheard of. Piccolo too quiet, you say, Guy? Yes, piccolo too quiet. Nobody in a live orchestral session ever says, can we have more piccolo? It's so loud. It is so loud, honestly. Oh. Right, so if we go to the groups, where's a group? Where are my groups gone? There you go. This is why you colour code things. Okay, so let's... So if that's the whole brass section, you can control the whole brass section on one. And if you want to take the whole lot out, you've got no spill from the reverb. And if you want to record the stems, you take all the stems, you put them into record, and then you push record and it goes. And you can see that the stems are split out. So all the woodwinds are on that audio track, all the brass is on that audio track. That's basically it. That's how it works. So if we look at very briefly at a much more complicated, this is a proper project I'm working on at the moment. So this has got 600 tracks, but the only reason is because I've got lots of different libraries: BBC brass, Spitfire brass, Berlin brass, Tom Hawkins brass, and honestly, I use. There will be times when, I just need a little afflatus brass just for those multi-tonguing and thing, etc., etc. So it goes on and on and on and on. Now, when it comes to how I've actually balanced them up, though, I've gone a stage further, and I'm not sure if this is a brilliant idea or not. But anyway, what I'm doing at the moment is, as well as the little MIDI bit. I then have I have a separate version of this template where I've got one held note which I give a consistent velocity to. So I'll give it velocity 80, and then I'll use that held note for all the held notes, and just for all the. In other words, I'm neutralizing velocity as well as everything else to try and get things balanced. And if it's a short note, I'll have repeated and a fixed velocity. And if it's a piccolo, obviously I'll transpose it up. And if it's a double bass, I'll transpose it down. And it just another way of just getting things to line up and all the rest of it. The whole point of this is to give you more time to write music and less time to faff about. I've known students who have gone down rabbit holes with touch screens and God knows what else, and have never been seen again. Anybody seen Paul recently? He got into the touch screen and I have never seen him since. That's how it goes. As soon as you start getting into this complexity, the touch screen is supposed to save you time, and by the time it's taken you 6 months to program, it has not saved you time. Okay. You need to get your priorities right. This is a quick way of building a template. So you get all the advantages without the disadvantages. That's the theory anyway. So look, I hope you found this useful, and there's a simple BBC template. If you're an owner of Cubase and BBC Core or Pro, there's a link underneath this to the template, which you can download for yourself and see what you think, see if you find it useful. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Thanks very much for your time. See you very soon. Bye-bye.